So after two 10+ minute videos about why speedsters lose to bad writing, I thought it would be a good time to conclude this saga by talking about how to actually write a speedster. Now I did talk about this a few times throughout the videos, and basically, the reason so many speedsters lose to bad writing is because the writing itself isn't aware of its own implications. So many speedsters are either shown or told to be able to basically slow down time and move normally within that perception, but then they lose in ways that directly contradict what they either showed or told us. In the 1900s, when superheroes that we know and love were first being introduced, the Flash was the very first speedster. But then you look at his place in the Justice League and he's just kind of a side character, not really the focus of the team. And that's fair, why would he be? He's not Superman, he's just the guy who runs fast. But as the writers kept taking his powers further and further, the side character precedent remained and carried over to the Flash knockoffs. So these days, speedsters are very powerful when you think about it, but are still treated like normal ass heroes.
I'm sure that's what Red Rush told Olga.
Hey, he could run fast, okay? It's not exactly one of your premier superpowers.
So you see this dynamic where the writers almost try to play both sides by being like, yeah, this is what it looks like to be a speedster. Don't sleep on this guy, he's a badass. But then later treat him like they would any other hero. So to put it simply, the right way to write a speedster is to pick a side. Either just make him a guy who runs fast or treat him as powerful as they are. And thankfully, I do have an example for both options. So because pretty much all the speedsters I talked about are gods treated like level 1 bums, let's first talk about a god written like a god.
Please, let's have a little respect for public transportation.
The first thing this movie does is tell us that Megamind never beat Metro Man. But then you have to think, wait, how does he get caught by Megamind in these pictures? Well, Megamind is never shown to be a blood-hungry villain. He kind of just wants to beat Metro Man. Even when he takes over the city, he doesn't start building concentration camps. He kind of just messes around and gets bored. And what do we see in one of the greatest character introduction scenes of all time? Well, before I tell you, I think this is the right time to say that despite my two very popular videos talking about plot inconsistencies, I honestly don't give a shit. Now it is objectively embarrassing when writers can't even follow their own rules, but actually following them really isn't deserving of praise. But character writing, this seamless, this compact, this thematically rich, this is what I love.
And at the end of every day, well, I often ask myself, who would I be without you? I love you, Metro Man! And I love you, random citizen!
It sounds like he says the line to the audience, but he was really talking to himself. And that little pause with him thinking to himself, like, what a scene, dude, Jesus Christ. I also love the parallel with Megamind about struggling to find meaning in their lives. But anyway, this is probably why Metro Man has been caught against Megamind, because he was probably just toying around. Especially when we get to see his speed and like, oh my god, dude, this is probably the fastest speedster ever. He contemplates his life while traveling throughout the entire city, and we know he did this in like a nanosecond. And we don't even know for how long he was in super speed. Judging by how much thinking he did going from trying to clear his mind to faking his own death, is it fair to say like 5 hours, maybe 6? Metro Man is written from an angle where he is a god, and he's too powerful to be beaten. So his conflict doesn't come from beating Megamind, it comes from living a life with no real journey or goal. That's why he chooses to master the guitar and become a full-time gamer. Megamind is a great movie and Metro Man is just a product of great writing. People say that if the writers were to treat the speedster like a god, then the stories would be boring and meaningless, and this couldn't be further from the truth. Maybe instead of trying to mold and force a speedster into a role of some normal-ass hero with normal-ass villains, explore the concepts that go in line with their abilities. Metro Man is proof of this. Old Superman stories used to explore these topics. One Punch Man is a show that I've never watched, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's about. And a lot of people like it, so there you go. Imagine if The Flash wasn't a show about him having to overcome every random ass villain of the week, and instead, a show where he absolutely dunks on these metahumans to the point where he becomes cocky and arrogant. And then Reverse Flash sees that Barry doesn't want to train to get faster because he thinks he's unstoppable. That's when he brings out the yellow suit to scare Barry into training. Cut it down from like 16 hours to a good 8 hours in there. I think that would have been a good show. Now, some people's reaction to this might be, oh my god, dude, why do you have to ruin our fun? Like, why does Flash have to be a god? And to that I say, how about we don't have time travel? How about we don't freeze time? How about we drop speed of light and phasing and lightning bolts and speed force? How about just a good 200 miles per hour? How about dash? Now, I already talked about Dash in my last video, but basically, the reason he's so important is because he's exactly what most speedsters are supposed to be. They can move fast, and yeah, they look like a nightmare to deal with, but you can still catch them with timing or misdirection. This is how I believe most speedsters should be written, because then they really can be sidekick superheroes, and you can also have villains like Captain Cold. But like I said in the video, most writers also want to show these slow motion scenes to be like, oh my god, look how cool he is, super speed is awesome, but then shortly after contradict themselves anyway. Red Rush is honestly my main example of this, and I want to say that I don't really like Invincible. And no, it's not because Red Rush died in a bullshit way, it's because most of the dialogue is too upfront with obvious meaning and the plot lines are very generic.
Welcome to Mars, Earthman.
And the reason I bring this up is because of the writing in this Red Rush scene. By this point, it's clear that the writers want to characterize the Guardians of the Globe and convince you that they'll be the main characters, so it's more shocking when Omni-Man kills them all. So obviously Red Rush was going to get a scene with his girlfriend. So yeah, the writers here are like, yeah, let's make people think about what it is to be a speedster. And this scene not only introduces, but explores the fact that Red Rush perceives time in slow motion. And before this, in the Electro scene, you could have honestly had me believe that Red Rush was just a Dash type guy who moves at like 100 miles per hour. Instead of the writers using this scene to explore Red Rush as a person, we just get this somewhat compelling conflict that honestly doesn't even make any sense. Like, why does it imply that Red Rush is always in speed react mode? Just like I said before, did he actually get good at talking super slowly so it would sound normal? So ultimately guys, the key to writing a speedster is basic logic. Write them to the level of their abilities. And this isn't skill. Any writer with the brain could do this. Which is why my enjoyment of something doesn't come from the plot and its consistency, but instead from the artistry lying beneath.